Didn't receive a wedding invitation, yet was expected to gift a custom-made cake to someone who's barely an acquaintance. I have a mixed group of friends, some are close, like Maddie and Jesse, but most are more acquaintances through association. Still, we all go out together and usually have a good time. Out of everyone, I genuinely consider Maddie and Jesse real friends. For Maddie's birthday, I picked up a cake for her. When Jesse had a small civil wedding, Maddie offered to bring wine for the little celebration at her place, and I volunteered to bring a cake again. In our group, there's this girl, Carly. Our relationship is odd, we're not friends, nor are we enemies. She's always seemed a bit apathetic toward me, and I get the distinct impression she's not a fan. I don't dislike her, but it's clear to me we probably wouldn't get along as friends either. Our worldviews just don't mesh. At Jesse's wedding celebration, Carly tried the cake I brought and commented that she liked it. Jesse mentioned that I had made it, and Carly immediately announced that, while it tasted good, it was a bit dry. Everyone exchanged glances and awkwardly moved on, but Carly kept bringing up the cake, drawing out the moment. I let it pass and said nothing. Carly had been busy planning her own wedding for months, even before Jesse's. She would discuss dresses, venues, and prices with Maddie, Jesse, and other girls in the group, never me. She never asked for my opinion, my advice, or my help. I took that as a sign I wasn't going to be invited. Sure enough, the others all received invitations, and mine never came, which didn't surprise me at all. Jesse wanted to talk to Carly about it, but I stopped her. I didn't want a pity invite, and, honestly, I understood why she didn't include me. We simply weren't friends. Jesse tried to reassure me, saying she'd skip the wedding if it would make me feel better. But I told her she shouldn't worry, I was genuinely fine with it. Then, out of nowhere, Carly messaged me on WhatsApp asking about cake designs and flavor options. I thought she already had everything planned by now, but I sent her my catalog anyway. She reacted to a few options, asked if I could do the setup, and I said yes, sharing a couple of example photos. All I got back was a thumbs up emoji. She didn't request a quote or ask for a meeting, so I figured she wasn't interested and moved on. That was over a month ago. Today, the whole group went out to eat and everyone was buzzing about her wedding. Carly's fiancé turned to me and asked who I'd be bringing to the wedding, since I'm single, and I gently told him I wouldn't be attending. He looked surprised and asked why. To keep things upbeat and avoid any drama, I said I'd be traveling to visit my parents. He nodded, but Carly immediately pressed, "When are you leaving?" I told her Wednesday. She replied, suddenly annoyed, "The wedding's on Saturday, how are you going to set up the cake and desserts?" I just stared at her and asked, "What cake?" She answered, "The one you're bringing to my wedding." I explained that nothing was actually scheduled between us. She seemed shocked, insisting she had our messages as evidence. I gently reminded her that I'd only shared options and photos, and since she never followed up, I'd assumed she wasn't interested. Her fiancé asked if there was still any way it could work. I explained that my bakery requires a contract and a deposit, and with the date so close, they wouldn't take a last-minute wedding order. Maddie piped up and asked Carly directly if she'd paid a deposit or signed a contract. Carly looked insulted and demanded to know why she would need to, insisting that the cake was my wedding gift to her, and I was expected to deliver, even though she never invited me. I told her, as calmly as I could, that I don't control the bakery's calendar, and at this point, there was just no way they could fit a new order in. Carly went quiet and obviously upset. I asked for my bill, paid, and left, just needing to get away from the tension. I really don't want to lose my place with these friends, they're the only people I feel comfortable with in this new city. But I'm terrible at handling drama, and the fact is, I just prefer to avoid confrontation. Maddie told me afterward that Carly was fuming, insisting I'd backed out after agreeing, and some in the group hinted that maybe I only skipped the wedding because I didn't want to make the cake. Jesse defended me, pointing out I was never even invited. Carly shot back that she did invite me, though the only time she bothered to talk to me was when she wanted a custom cake as a gift at her wedding, when we weren't even friends. Update 1. I've always had a hard time standing up for myself and confronting people. It's not that I don't want to, I get so nervous it feels like I can't breathe. Back in school, I used to throw up before and after presentations. Even with simple things, like getting the wrong order, I'd keep it rather than face the awkwardness of returning it. Therapy's helped a lot. I now work as a cashier at a bakery, which I never could have handled before. But public speaking or conflict? Still nerve-wracking. My younger sister used to go everywhere with me, and she'd handle anything as simple as paying a cashier because I'd get so anxious just talking to someone. Here's where things got complicated. For a bit of context, I'm 21, Maddie is 30, Carly is 30, Anna is 31, Carly's fiancé is 31, and Jesse is 30. After things between me and Carly unraveled, someone suggested what to say and I finally reached out to her. She claimed she thought I wouldn't mind making the wedding cake, that I owed her a gift anyway, and this was the gift she wanted. I told her only guests were responsible for bringing gifts. She seemed confused until I pointed out she never invited me to the wedding, and then promptly left me on read. I needed some clarity, so I messaged her fiancé. I said, I don't want to cause drama or misunderstandings, but I never committed to making Carly's wedding cake, and sent him the screenshots. He called me immediately, apologizing that he found it odd since Carly told him I had offered. What really floored him was hearing I wasn't invited to the wedding at all. I tried to sound understanding, reassuring him I wasn't upset and understood if it was something private, and we ended the call on good terms. But around noon, Carly messaged me again, accusing me of making mountains out of molehills, demanding to know why I couldn't just give her the damn cake. She said she didn't get why I was being so sensitive. I had given Maddie a cake and Jessie one as well, why not her? I explained, Maddie's was a birthday cake, Jessie's wedding cake wasn't even a wedding cake, really? Carly brushed it off, a cake is a cake. I finally told her, if that's the case, you can just buy one from the supermarket. Right as she began to reply, I blocked her. Things escalated fast. Carly took a screenshot of just my supermarket comment and blasted it in our group chat, trying to paint me as rude and ungrateful and make herself look like the victim. I wasn't having it. I followed a suggestion I'd gotten earlier, adapted a bit, and posted this to the group. Hey everyone. I want to clear up some confusion and rumors. I won't be attending the wedding because I didn't receive an invitation. I understood and made other plans for that time since the rest of you were invited. I'm not hurt or upset, it is what it is. The confusion about the cake is as baffling to me as it is to you. I only provided information on models and fillings from the place where I work, and that's all. I don't understand why it's expected that I cover a cake for a wedding I'm not invited to. It's true I suggested the supermarket, as she said the purpose of the cake didn't matter. I hope this clears everything up. I wish you all a wonderful time celebrating Carly and her fiancé. Congratulations in advance to the happy couple, and I hope those not involved don't feel caught in the middle. I didn't stop there. I shared screenshots showing Carly's thumbs up reaction when I sent her bakery samples, and all our conversations from those days. Eventually, someone in the group complained that the drama didn't belong there and should be resolved privately. But Maddie jumped in. Carly demanded the cake in public, so it's only fair that everything is explained publicly. Anna chimed in with, that's not the way you ask for a gift. Carly, seeing she was outnumbered, sent a voice note dripping with sarcasm, saying she didn't know a simple cake would ruin my finances but that it was fine, and I shouldn't have aired our chat in public. She followed it with another jab. When I get married and don't have friends who can help with things from their jobs, I'd understand what it's like to not have support. Then, a guy in the group pressed her, you didn't invite her? Carly claimed she had sent me the invitation. Someone else asked, do you have the confirmation? She didn't answer? Still no answer. Carly finally said, no, but she should have told me when she saw she didn't get the invite. Jessie replied, saying she didn't like Carly's behavior, and she'd consider not attending except for the fiancé's sake. Carly then tried to save face, so no one says I didn't invite you. Everyone can see here I'm inviting you now. I'll send an electronic invite since there's no point in printing one now. I told her not to bother, I already made other plans. Carly finished with, there you all see. Just then, someone who had watched the whole thing unfold without a word quietly left the group. Update 2. Let me explain everything clearly this time, in order. I know I have a habit of being brief when I speak, which sometimes confuses people, so I'll lay it all out, no details missing. Carly had already sent out the wedding invitations when she tasted Jessie's cake. That happened on Monday. Immediately after that, the group chat just went dead, and the boyfriend muted it since he was the only admin. On Tuesday, something unexpected happened. Carly's boyfriend came by the bakery where I work. He asked how I was doing and apologized for how Carly had treated me. He said he genuinely felt bad about it. Then he handed me an invitation to the wedding, although it didn't look like the originals. It was just a plain white envelope with a printed letter inside. He specifically asked me if I would come to the wedding. I told him honestly that I already had plans and that, in truth, I wouldn't feel comfortable going. He wanted to know why I hadn't raised the issue when I didn't receive an invitation in the first place. So I laid it out. I was embarrassed to be the only one excluded, but also I understood the situation. He seemed genuinely surprised. He said he didn't know about the exclusion and, when Maddie brought it up to Carly told him she'd already sent my invitation but would check on it. He kept pushing me to come, saying it would mean a lot to him and Carly. But standing my ground, I said no. Learning to say no has been harder than it sounds, but after this, it felt great. He still asked me to think about it, left the invitation with me, and left. That night, the boyfriend added the best man, who had left earlier, back into the group chat. Then he sent a message to everyone, saying something like, the issue is resolved now, it was just a misunderstanding. We hope Op will join Carly and me on our big day. It would be really sad, we'd really miss her if she doesn't come. Op, please come celebrate with us. Later that night, Anna messaged me privately, asking, did the boyfriend really bring you an invitation? I sent her a photo to prove it. Her response, what an idiot. She followed up with, don't go if you don't want to. Don't let him off the hook. He's no better than Carly. I thanked her, and we wished each other a good night. As the boyfriend reactivated the group chat, Carly replied to his message with 2 crying emojis. Yes, Op? Before anything else could happen, the best man left the group again in silence. I followed suit, left the group, and turned off my phone. When I arrived at my parents' house and turned my phone back on, a flood of messages arrived. I had no idea what Carly had said after I left the chat, but Anna had sent a flurry of angry messages. Clearly, Carly said something outrageous. There were messages from the boyfriend pleading, it's here now, Calm down. Carly, meanwhile, flooded the group with questions about why I wasn't responding. Maddie replied to Carly, whose actual messages I couldn't see anymore, with, "Why do you want me to reply if you feel that way?" From what I gathered, Carly called me the idiot who never has an opinion about anything, and now she's trying to act interesting. Jessie quickly responded, letting everyone know, she's not receiving the messages, she's not seeing this. I saw a barrage of private messages from Jessie, but honestly, I was feeling really overwhelmed. I didn't even check the group chat in full, I just turned my phone off for the night. Saturday rolled around, the day of the wedding. I saw the photos later on Facebook. Jessie and Maddie had messaged me privately, but I wasn't sure how to reply. Finally, Maddie came by to see me at work. She asked if I was upset about her going to the wedding. I assured her I wasn't. She mentioned that I hadn't replied to her texts, and I explained that I was just stressed. The conversation took a surprising turn. Maddie told me she had talked to Carly's mom about the whole cake fiasco. Carly's mother revealed that she never received the cake, either. Apparently, Carly wanted another girl to buy her cake just a week before the wedding. Maddie explained to Carly's mom that the original plan had been to have a fake cake, and the actual cake, pre-ordered in individual portions, for the guests. Carly's mother said she'd talked to Carly, but assumed it must have been a misunderstanding. Then, Maddie let me in on another detail. The best man had told her he was cutting ties with Carly's boyfriend altogether because of the resort issue and everything else that had happened. According to Maddie, Carly was in a bad mood throughout the wedding and the boyfriend got so drunk that they left the reception early. Despite all that, the wedding itself was fine. Interestingly, the original bridesmaids, us, weren't even the bridesmaids at the wedding. Carly recruited other girls at the last minute. Neither the best man nor Anna attended. To clarify, Anna hadn't sent the angry messages to me, but to Carly. The chat is on WhatsApp, and the messages I saw came after I was re-added and the one Maddie had selected. The best man wasn't on my side, he had his own separate issue with Carly and her boyfriend, unrelated to me. Anna's style is that if she doesn't like something, she'll say so. She wasn't standing up for me in particular, she would have done the same for anyone. All this has left me wishing, at times, that I'd just given Carly the cake as a gift and moved on. People at work have heard bits of the story, and now it feels awkward. It's easy to share everything here, but in person it's so much harder for me. I hope the next time I update will be the last, because I'm ready to move on. Update 3. I thought I was done with this whole mess, but apparently life had other plans. I don't even know how to process what's happened. It's been 3 weeks since the wedding, and I was finally starting to feel normal again. Work was getting back to routine, and I'd even started hanging out with Maddie and Jessie without feeling awkward about the whole situation. I figured Carly and her husband were off enjoying their honeymoon somewhere, and I could just move on with my life. Then last Tuesday, Carly's husband showed up at the bakery again. He looked awful, like he hadn't slept in days. He asked if we could talk privately, so we went to the back during my break. I was already getting that familiar anxious feeling in my stomach. He told me their honeymoon had been a disaster. They'd been fighting constantly, and Carly kept bringing up the cake situation, saying I'd ruined her wedding day. But then he said something that made my blood run cold. During one of their fights, Carly had admitted she'd been talking to her ex-boyfriend throughout their entire engagement. I just sat there staring at him. He said he'd found months of messages between them on her phone. She'd been complaining about him to her ex, talking about how she wasn't sure she was making the right choice. The ex had been telling her she deserved better and should leave. But here's the part that made me feel sick. Carly had apparently told her ex that I was this obsessed, jealous friend who was trying to sabotage her wedding because I was secretly in love with her fiancé. She'd made up this whole story about me being crazy and possessive. I couldn't even speak. I kept thinking about how confused I'd been, how she'd made me feel like I was being unreasonable, and now I find out she'd been lying about me to justify her own behavior. Her husband looked at me and said he finally understood why I'd been so hurt and confused. He said reading those messages made him realize that Carly had been using the cake situation to deflect from her own guilt. She needed someone to blame for the problems in their relationship, and I was an easy target. Then he asked me directly, "Did you ever have feelings for me?" I was so caught off guard that I couldn't answer for a minute. Finally, I managed to say no, that I'd never thought of him that way, and I couldn't understand why Carly would even think that. He nodded and said he believed me. Then he said something that confused me even more. "I think she might have been projecting her own guilt onto you." I didn't really understand what he meant by that, but before I could ask, he said Carly wanted to apologize and asked if I'd be willing to meet with both of them to clear the air. He thought it might help their marriage if we could resolve everything. I told him I'd think about it, but honestly, the whole conversation left me feeling overwhelmed and anxious. I just wanted to go home and hide. That night, I called Jessie to tell her what happened. She was as shocked as I was. She said she'd noticed that Carly always seemed to pay a lot of attention to me for someone who supposedly didn't like me, but she'd never thought much of it. I've been trying not to think about it, but some things are starting to make more sense now. Like how Carly would always find excuses to be near me when we were out, or how she'd get genuinely upset when I'd leave early or skip group events. I always thought she was just being critical, but maybe there was more to it. Yesterday, Carly texted me directly. She said she wanted to talk, that there were things she needed to explain, and that she was sorry for how everything happened. She said she'd been going through some personal stuff and had handled everything badly. I haven't responded yet. Part of me wants to just block her and move on. But I'm also worried about the group dynamics. Maddie mentioned that the whole friend group is kind of falling apart over this, and I don't want to be the reason everyone loses their social circle. Her husband said I need to give him an answer about meeting with them by Friday. I really don't know what to do. The whole situation feels so much more complicated now. I thought I was dealing with a bridezilla who wanted a free cake. Now I find out I was caught in the middle of someone else's marriage problems and lies. I keep going back and forth on whether to meet with them. I'm terrible at confrontation, and I'm worried about getting pulled into more drama, but maybe clearing the air would be good for everyone? I honestly don't know what to think anymore. Update 4. I decided not to meet with them. I know that probably sounds anticlimactic, but after thinking about it for days, I realized I didn't owe them anything. I texted Carly's husband back and said I appreciated him reaching out, but I thought it was better if they worked through their marriage issues without involving me. He seemed to understand and thanked me for being honest about everything from the start. I thought that would be the end of it, but of course, it wasn't. Last week, Maddie came by the bakery looking uncomfortable. She said she needed to tell me something about the wedding that she'd been debating whether to mention. Apparently, during the reception, Carly had gotten really drunk and started complaining loudly about me to anyone who would listen. She'd been telling people I was obsessed with her and had ruined her special day because I was jealous of her happiness. But here's the thing that made Maddie finally decide to tell me. Carly's own cousin had approached Maddie afterward and said she was embarrassed by Carly's behavior. The cousin said she'd heard the real story from other family members and thought Carly was being completely unreasonable. She'd apparently told Maddie, "That girl seems sweet, and Carly's been awful to her. I don't know why she's so fixated on someone who's barely even her friend." Maddie said hearing that made her realize how toxic the whole situation had become. She'd been trying to stay neutral, but watching Carly trash talk me at her own wedding crossed a line. Then yesterday, things got weird again. Anna called me panicked, saying Carly had been messaging her asking for my work schedule. When Anna asked why, Carly said she wanted to clear the air properly and that I'd been avoiding her. Anna told her to leave me alone, but Carly kept insisting that I was being dramatic and that we could work things out if I'd just talk to her. I felt that familiar anxiety creeping in. I asked Anna what she'd told her, and she said she'd been honest, that I didn't want to be involved in their drama and that Carly needed to respect that. But then Anna said something that made me realize how much this whole thing had affected me. "You know, you've been different since all this started. More confident, I guess. You're not letting people walk all over you anymore." She was right. A few months ago, I probably would have just made the cake to avoid confrontation. I would have gone to the wedding even if I felt unwelcome. I would have met with Carly and her husband just because they asked, even though I didn't want to. But I'm also exhausted. I moved to this city to start fresh, and instead I got pulled into someone else's mess. I love my job at the bakery, but now I'm constantly worried Carly might show up. I like my friends, but every group hangout feels tense because everyone's walking on eggshells. Yesterday, my manager at the bakery asked if I was okay because I'd been seeming distracted lately. I didn't want to explain the whole situation, so I just said I'd had some friend drama. She nodded and said something that stuck with me. "Sometimes when people have their own problems, they need someone to blame. Don't let someone else's chaos become your problem." I think that's exactly what happened. Carly was dealing with whatever was going on in her relationship, and I became a convenient target. The cake thing was never really about the cake, it was about her needing someone to be the villain in her story. I've been thinking about setting some boundaries. Maybe taking a break from the group hangouts for a while. Jesse and Maddie have been supportive, but even they keep bringing up the situation, wanting to analyze every detail. I'm just tired of talking about it. The good news is that work has been busy, and I've been picking up extra shifts. It's nice to focus on something simple, taking orders, helping customers, making sure the display cases look good. No drama, no hidden meanings, just straightforward work. I'm hoping things will calm down eventually. Maybe Carly will get distracted by something else, or maybe she and her husband will work things out and move on. Either way, I'm done trying to understand her motivations or fix whatever went wrong between us. I just want to get back to my quiet life where the biggest stress is making sure we don't run out of croissants during the morning rush. Update 5. I thought I was finally done with this whole mess, but apparently the universe had other plans. It's been about 6 weeks since I decided to step back from everything, and I was actually starting to feel normal again. Work was good, I'd been hanging out with a couple of coworkers outside of the old group, and I was even thinking about maybe dating again. Then last Thursday happened. I was closing up the bakery when this woman I'd never seen before walked in right before we locked the doors. She looked around nervously and asked if she could speak to me privately. Something about her seemed familiar, but I couldn't place her. She introduced herself as Sarah and said she was Carly's ex-boyfriend's current girlfriend. I honestly didn't know what to say. I just stood there holding a tray of leftover pastries, wondering how my life had gotten so complicated. Sarah said she'd been debating whether to reach out for weeks, but she felt like I deserved to know what was really going on. She told me that Carly had been calling her boyfriend, let's call him Jake, constantly since her honeymoon disaster. At first, Sarah thought it was just Carly being dramatic about her marriage problems, but then she started getting suspicious about how often they talked. She said she'd finally looked at Jake's phone and found months of messages between him and Carly. Not just during her engagement, but going back over a year. They'd been having an emotional affair the entire time, and Sarah had screenshots to prove it. But here's the part that made me feel sick. In the messages, Carly had been painting this whole picture of me as this obsessed, manipulative friend who was trying to steal her fiancé. She'd told Jake that I was constantly flirting with her husband-to-be and that the whole cake situation was me trying to sabotage her wedding out of jealousy. Sarah showed me some of the messages on her phone. Carly had written things like, "She's so obvious about her feelings for him. It's embarrassing and I think she's mentally unstable, the way she's been acting." There were dozens of messages where Carly was essentially using me as a villain in her story to get sympathy from Jake. I felt like I was going to throw up. All those times I thought I was being paranoid about Carly's behavior, all those moments where I felt like I was overreacting. She'd been actively lying about me to justify her own affair. Sarah said she'd broken up with Jake after finding the messages, but she wanted to warn me because Carly had been asking Jake for information about me. Apparently, Carly had been trying to find out where I lived, what my schedule was, and even asking about my family. Sarah thought I should know in case Carly tried to contact me or show up somewhere. I thanked Sarah for telling me, and she left. I went home and immediately called Jessie. She was horrified and said she'd had no idea how deep this went. She also mentioned something that made my blood run cold. Carly had been asking her subtle questions about me recently, like whether I'd been dating anyone or if I seemed happy. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how Carly had manipulated the entire situation. She'd been having an affair, feeling guilty about it, and decided to make me the scapegoat for all her problems. Every cruel thing she'd said, every time she'd made me feel crazy or unreasonable, it was all projection. The next morning, I got to work early and told my manager I might need to change my schedule for a while. I didn't go into details, but I said I was having some personal safety concerns. She was understanding and said we could adjust things if needed. Then, around lunchtime, Carly's husband showed up at the bakery again. But this time, he looked angry instead of sad. He asked if we could talk, and I reluctantly agreed. He told me he'd found out about Jake and the affair. He said Carly had finally confessed everything during another fight, and he'd contacted Jake directly to get the full story. That's when he learned about all the lies Carly had been telling about me. He apologized profusely and said he felt